So let's start with the presentation. And this week we're doing 1 versus 1 to 3 versus 3 team warm-up. And I've chosen this activity, Ian, for the simplicity, but the ability to ramp up the challenge real quickly. In this activity, as you can see here, we have 2 teams. I've chosen 5 players, but we can certainly increase the number of players significantly. And each team has 5 players, and they're either side of the coach that's standing in the middle of the field with a large supply of balls. At each end, there is a goal, a small-sided goal, and the game starts with the coach passing the ball into the area. Doesn't have to be straight. And one player from each team, 1 yellow and 1 red, runs out into the area with the objective of winning the ball and scoring in either goal. The yellow team scoring in one end and the red team scoring in the other. So Ian, let's talk a little bit about some of the methodology we might use on this first phase of the activity.
Yeah, thanks, David. The first thing is if we had maybe 6 players on each team, I might decide to break this into 2 fields, but I think 5 is about right for 1 field. Key is the coach has supply of all the balls. So he and she has a great opportunity to manipulate the challenge. For example, if they were to play the ball here, now the situation is a little different. The yellow player is returning or recovering towards their goal, where they're facing their own goal, and the red player could apply pressure, and you create a different game-like scenario. So the coach's ability to deliver the balls and manipulate the training scenarios is really great. Of course, the central goals make it pretty much a small-sided game, so it's a little bit less stressful for the players in that regard. But the coach can also manage stress on the players by determining how big or how small this playing surface is. The bigger the playing surface, the greater the stress on the defender. The smaller the space, the greater the stress on the attacker.
Great, thanks, Ian. So what I'm going to do is actually going to pull up a poll question. For those of you that would like to answer this question, please do so. It's now appearing on the right-hand side of your screen. And let's move on now to the second phase of the activity. So this activity has been developed by adding additional goals, 1 side goal on each end of the field. And as you can see now, we've also increased the points value, and I'll let Ian explain that in a minute. One of the other changes is now we've got multiple groups going at the same time, and here we have 3 groups. One that is just finishing, and then the coach has, based on where the first group is playing, has now released 1 ball straight out into the big space towards the far side of the area, and also 1 to the left-hand side of the coach, so keeping the spacing reasonably open for both teams. So Ian, let's talk a little bit about some of the methodology here.
Sure. As you were addressing the setup there, David, Kurt had asked a question about the numbers of players. And initially, especially at the sort of 8-9-year level, I'm going to use 1v1s to go to get the activity going. But we'll talk a little bit here in a second for Kurt's question as to when we would ramp up the numbers. As we go here now, just be aware that these multiple 1v1s does pose a little bit of a risk of kids running into each other, so just be aware of that. What's great about the multiple goals, though, is now the attackers have different opportunities and decisions to make, which challenges the defenders with different decisions to make on which goal to defend. David here has somewhat randomized the point value of each goal. However, if we put the higher point value on the center goal, it will get 1 attacking response. If we, on the other hand, put the higher point values on the wide goals, we would change the way the attackers look to solve the problem. And then, of course, the secret point value, as alluded to on the bottom left of the screen, is an excellent idea, because what you can actually do is let the attackers know which goal is the primary goal, and see if the defenders can work it out and how the defenders adjust. So there's a lot of little things you can manipulate here, which have really ramped this up from the traditional 1v1 to a single goal.
And another consideration for coaches here is that we'll end up having a situation where players will start shooting from greater distances. So if the coach really wants to encourage the player to take on a player, beat a player, and then get closer to the goal, then they can essentially create a scoring zone at each end, say 10 yards from the goals, by using some cones or another line markers in order for the player to beat the defender before they get into that area and then shooting at goal. So let's go to the next sequence. And this time we've removed the goals and created an end zone. And Ian will talk a little bit about why we would do that. And you'll notice here another nuance, another change has been we're sending players from both sidelines so that we now create this combination. So we have, as you can see on this diagram, 2 red players entering, one from the coach's side, one from the far side, and the Reds have 1 possession, and now they must combine before they go into the end zone in order to score. Of course, as a result, the yellow team, also having 1 player from each side, are now defending, and this gives us the opportunity to work on pressure and cover the first and second defender. So Ian, let's talk a little bit about some of the methodology we're using here.
Sure, and just before I do that, David, Stephanie had asked a question about the activity working for larger groups. I think what we're demonstrating here would work for up to about 10. Once I got more than 10 players, I would do exactly the same activity. I would just do it in 2 different spaces. So I would just put another grid in. So I think this works up to about 10 players. Okay, so many great things here. First of all, when we get into 2v2s, we've now got notions of collaboration, cooperation, communication, sort of 3 C's, if you will. So the defenders have to work in tandem. The attackers are combining to undo the joint defending. What I really like, as David has demonstrated, is these new starting positions. So right away in the 2v2, there's a left and right orientation. If we decided to go to 3v3, we could bring another player in from here. To make it a little bit more like a triangle. And if we went to 4v4, we might bring one in from the back to create a diamond shape off the start. So really good things there. Other interesting things is using the entire end zone as the method of scoring. So now an individual can dribble into the end zone, that would be a goal, or as demonstrated here, they pass it into the end zone for their teammate to receive. So passing, dribbling, and what's really another a potential adjustment here would be we could make the front of the end zone the offside line to increase the sophistication. So now this player, as he passes, his teammate has to time the run so as to be onside when he receives the ball in the end zone. And now you can start to bring in notions of rules of the game, but a really nice advancement for our 3rd phase.
Okay, Ian, that's about as much time as we had for this give and go. We try to keep them within a 5 to 10 minute time period. A couple of things to mention. If you've sent in a question, we haven't answered it, then we'll do so in our LinkedIn group. And you can go to LinkedIn, look up United Coaches and hopefully find our group. We'll also invite you to the group as well if you aren't currently a member. And that group has about 26,000 members in it. In addition to that, if you would like to listen to this presentation on replay, about an hour after this presentation, you'll receive a link, and that link will take you to the replay of the presentation. So, Ian, thanks very much for your time today, and thank you for the coaches, and look forward to having you join us the next time we do Give and Go.